for certain. America has gotten to know Tim Walz, the Democratic nominee on the left side of the fence, to say the least, right? The radical left side of the fence. And when you say radical, when it comes to Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, you put it in all caps. I'm Matt Levine, capital M, lowercase, onto the L, uppercase, finish it out, right? As you join me here on Red Dawn Media, hope everything is going well. Tim Walz, what can you say about him other than this guy is an absolute doozy, maybe a lot of a wackadoodle? Certainly America learned a lot about him last week as he was introduced with that woman to our left, Kamala Harris. Walz is 61 years old, the 41st governor of the state of Minnesota, elected in 2019. And as I've said, there are a lot of skeletons and a lot of controversial issues with his past, as the United States and the world gets to see it vetted in real time in front of us, and one story after another. Let's tell you all about Tim Walz. Well, I thought this was kind of awkward. Talk about weird, right? You know, to kick it off for me, when I first saw him coming out with Kamala last week, the first thought was, this is the governor that let Minnesota burn in the summer of 2020 with the George Floyd riots, and I'll talk more about that. But J.D. Vance pointed this out publicly. I saw it privately, I'm sure at the same time, in real time. You see Vance to the right with his wife, Usha, a lovingly kiss, a congratulatory moment for them, an embrace between a couple that apparently loves each other. To the left, Tim Walz with his wife, Gwendolyn, and there's a hearty handshake like one you'd see on the golf course after a round of 18. Moving on, let's talk about that summer of 2021. Governor Walz let this happen. Let Minneapolis burn for 5 days. The president of the United States back then, 45, Donald J. Trump, wanted to bring in the National Guard. He would not do it. He let the city literally burn to a crisp. Remember scenes like this? The police station in the top right kicked everything off on that Friday night in late June, when they literally let the police department in the country's 46th biggest city, 29th right now in the crime rankings, burn to the ground. Remember the reporter, right? This is a peaceful protest. It was actually the character generation run over the reporter across state lines there in Kenosha. Here it is for CNN. But it was all applicable as a microcosm of what was going on that summer in America. The next day, Minneapolis looked like this. What are thoughts come to the mind of when you see this? At least to my mind, Mogadishu, Afghanistan, a third world country that was literally bombed out in a war. That's Minneapolis, following the riots in the summer of 2020 that, again, Tim Walz allowed to happen. Yeah, mostly peaceful. Interestingly enough, you know, the wife, Gwen, who I mentioned, and his daughter, they played a role significantly in those summer of 2020 riots or peaceful protests. And if you remember this, which I do, his wife, Gwen, did a series of interviews. And she said, I kept the windows down during Minneapolis riots because it was a touchstone moment. How crazy do you get, right? Take a look at the New York Post headline right there. Move that camera so you can see me kind of straight. Tim Walz's wife, again, Gwen, said she kept the windows open during the George Floyd riots to smell the burning tires. Minnesota on fire, and this lady getting her jollies off. Sick, sick stuff. Meanwhile, the daughter, she played an influential role in things because she was whispering into daddy's ear, apparently to stall things, right? So she can get some procrastination and hesitation going so they can send in the National Guard. No. So she can tip off the rioters that they're sending in the National Guard, and let's get the riots going and things. Let's keep things under wraps. He set up a hotline for residents, snitching on neighbors, ignoring lockdown measures. I'm going to show you this video coming up. This is from the New York Post, right? And this came out this week. Now, I can't say I remember seeing this at all during the summer of 2020, but of course, I'm sure you remember. Like, again, these blue state governors took draconian measures. Walz was the leader of the pack. Here's what went down one summer night in Minneapolis when folks were just hanging out in their front stoops, and the stormtroopers, a.k.a. the Minnesota police, came around on the orders of Governor Walz to get people inside. So take a look and take a listen, again, courtesy of the New York Times.
Go inside now! Get in the house!
Get in! Oh, God, that hurt. You good? Are you okay? Right on the crotch. Are you okay? You got hit? I'm good.
And there you have it. More bad news surrounding Walz as, again, those skeletons come popping out of the closet. There was some fraud involved with the pandemic in the state of Minnesota. The DOJ, and I'm going to say this, and I'll say it till the cows come home, the right battle. He became Tampon Tim because a year ago, he signed an executive order in the state of Minnesota in which he said menstrual products would be in all public school bathrooms for the boys and the girls. As far as I know, right? I'm a middle-aged man. Boys do not menstruate, either do young men or grown men. Doesn't happen. But Governor Walz, he wanted the tampons in the bathroom, and the whack gadoodle rad left folks in Minnesota cheered him endlessly, but I got to say, he's looking quite ridiculous on the national scene. Even Trump and Tucker are getting a laugh. How about that? The memes continued. And the tampons hung on the bathroom walls. Perhaps the biggest skeleton to come flying out of this dude's closet, the charges of being a valor thief, stolen valor. And that was brought to the forefront by J.D. Vance, right? Talked about him earlier, about the awkward handshake that Walz had on his congratulatory day last week in Philly as they announced him again, the VP nominee. Vance reopens line of attack into Walz's military record as the two veterans now vie to be vice president. Take a look at this slide. Tells the story there. Enlisted Vance to the left in the Marine Corps after 9/11, deployed to Iraq. Meanwhile, one of the big items in his valor thievery is that Walz quit his unit when he deployed to Iraq and lied about his rank in the National Guard. Right? It's a great tweet right here. This is by CBS News. Governor Tim Walz and his military rank. A statement from the Minnesota Army National Guard responding to specific questions from CBS News shows that Walz's rank was reduced on May 15 of 2005, retired on May 16 of 2005. On September 10th of 2005, his records were corrected to reflect that he was not a command master sergeant. A command master sergeant is the highest rank you can have in an enlisted man in the Army. And that's very prestigious. So when he retired, that's what he said he was, but he didn't hang around the role enough, so he was demoted. And he didn't tell everyone that he was simply a master sergeant, not as prestigious enough. That's kind of the rank right there, as you see, of a command master sergeant. That's what he said he was, and he wasn't. Also said that he was in battle. He was talking to a bunch of folks in Minnesota, and he had done a speech about banning assault weapons potentially in his term in office and so on and so forth. And he compared it to banning the guns he carried in war. However, he never saw combat. Back to the charges that he left his unit. Fellow veteran speaks on Walz's misleading statements about his military record. This is Tom Behrens, a retired command sergeant. He took over for Walz and took the troops and deployed to Iraq. And he says as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way, hung up his hat, and quit. Honestly, there are some charges you can make against folks in this country, including a homewrecker, which Walz's compadre here has been accused of. That's a nasty one. So is being a valor thief. Just bad news bears no matter how you slice it or dice it. You know what's also bad? Having such a big affiliation with the CCP and the Chinese Communist government. Walz's connection would make him what you maybe even call an operative. Several ties to China, right? He taught at a state-run university in China, made dozens of trips to the communist country, they say 30 plus, had his honeymoon in China. Who the hell goes to China to have their honeymoon? Come on. That's the wrong clip there, I'm sorry, from the New York Post. This is one I want to share from you from the Time magazine article that recently came out. This is the opening paragraph, and it talks about the special place that he has in his heart and the 30 some odd visits you see highlighted, including his honeymoon, which he specially chose the date of the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. This is one weird dude. Not only does he have ties to China, but he has some ties to some very nasty people. There's old tampon Tim. Tim Walz has ties to a Muslim cleric with anti-Semitic views, giving state funding to his group. The report says that his administration reportedly donated $100,000 to the Muslim cleric who praised Hitler. Nasty, nasty people this guy is involved in. There's another headline there from the Daily Mail. How Tim Walz praised Muslim master teacher who promoted Hitler and refused to condemn the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel. I told you the skeletons, they come out of the closet one after the other, or as you can say, as you peel back the onion, right? So much comes into fruition. We're not done. The Minnesota state flag, here's what it used to look like, a traditional state flag. But suddenly, the state flag was not inclusive enough by Walz and his administration. They did like a 17-person or 19-person vote, and they came up with the fact that it was the wrong state flag from Minnesota. They needed to do something different. They needed to shake it up. Look to the left right here. That's the new Minnesota state flag. The one to the right is for the country of Somalia. I'll continue on. The new flag was supposed to be associated with an 8-point starburst with the Babylon goddess Ishtar. All right. Meanwhile, that's Ilan Omar. Unfortunately, she just won her primary this week on Tuesday. Don Samuels cannot boot her out. So that member of the squad lives to play another day. She's from Somalia. She's chum-chum with her BFF over there, Walz, as you see in the picture. And how about that? The new Minnesota state flag resembles that of Somalia, the proud homeland for one of the most anti-Semitic, disturbed people I've ever seen serve in American government. Completely weird. Take a look at the old flag. They said the reason it wasn't inclusive enough and why they changed it was in the middle you see a Native American and there's a landowner overseeing him work in the grounds. So they said he's there as a slave driver. So the flag wasn't inclusive enough, and the wokies attacked it, and they got their way, and here you go. How about that? A couple more issues surrounding the governor. This is one of them right here. Let me share this message with you. This is from the American Principles Projects. In the news, transgender Tim Walz signed into law to strip children of their parental protections. So Minnesota has therefore become a sanctuary for children to go to for transgender procedures. And finally, he's very open and fair to those illegal aliens, so much so that, remember when Tim Walz signed a bill into law that gives driver's licenses to illegal aliens? This guy is on the wrong side of the fence for every single issue that he is campaigning with Kamala Harris on. He's scary. The skeletons in his closet are ones that we have never seen, folks, in the history of America politics. Dangerous, concerning, and we've got to see how this all shakes out and what other skeletons come out of the closet, because I have a feeling we're just into this thing 2 weeks, right? There's more to come, and those walls are closing in for the new VP nominee on the Democratic side of things for this 2024 all-important presidential race. We shall see.